The $20 bill crumpled in my trembling hands as I stared at it through tears that refused to fall. $20. That's what my son Michael had given me for Christmas morning. Well, technically $17 after I'd bought myself a gas station coffee on the drive home, leaving me with 3 crumpled singles in my wallet. I sat in my small apartment's living room, surrounded by the modest decorations I'd put up with such hope just weeks before. According to YouTube analytics, 99.3% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. The tiny artificial tree blinked its colored lights mockingly, and beneath it sat the expensive gifts I'd carefully chosen for Michael, his wife Sarah, and their 2 children. Gifts I'd saved for months to afford on my fixed retirement income. The image burned in my mind. Sarah's mother, Patricia, squealing with delight as she ran her manicured fingers over the pristine red bow adorning the white BMW sedan parked in Michael's driveway. The car gleamed in the morning sun like something from a luxury commercial, and Patricia had actually cried. Tears of joy, not the bitter tears threatening to spill from my own eyes now. "Oh, Michael! Sarah, this is too much," Patricia had gushed, her designer handbag clutched to her chest as she admired her new car. "I can't believe it. A BMW? My friends at the country club will be so envious." I had stood there in my second-hand coat, holding my pathetic $20 bill, watching my son beam with pride at his mother-in-law's reaction. The same son who used to make me breakfast in bed every Mother's Day, who had once promised he'd take care of me when I got old, who had hugged me tight after his father's funeral and sworn I'd never want for anything. The contrast was so stark it felt surreal. Patricia's BMW, easily worth $60,000, sat gleaming in the driveway while I clutched my 20 like it was a winning lottery ticket. My own son had spent more on Patricia's car than I'd seen in 2 years of my Social Security checks combined. "Mom, I hope you like it," Michael had said awkwardly, barely making eye contact as he handed me the bill. "Things have been tight lately with the business and all." Tight. The word echoed in my head as I looked around my sparse apartment. If things were so tight, where had the BMW money come from? I knew the answer, of course. Patricia came from money, old money, and Sarah had made it clear from the beginning that maintaining Patricia's approval was crucial for Michael's business connections. Patricia's late husband had owned a construction empire, and her recommendations had helped Michael's architectural firm land several lucrative contracts. But I was just Mom. Just the woman who had worked double shifts as a nurse to put Michael through college. Just the widow who had quietly sold her home to help with his graduate school loans. Just the grandmother who babysat his children every weekend for free so he and Sarah could maintain their social life. I was disposable, forgettable, worth exactly $20. The hurt began transforming into something harder, colder. I thought about Patricia's smug smile when she'd hugged Michael, the way she'd made a point of thanking him for thinking of family while looking directly at me. The way Sarah had rolled her eyes when I'd exclaimed over the beautiful scarf she'd given me, until I realized it still had the clearance tag tucked inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Thanks for a great Christmas, Mom. Love you. Love." The word felt hollow. If this was love, I'd been doing it wrong my whole life. I stood up slowly, my arthritis protesting, and walked to my bedroom closet. In the back, behind my few good dresses, sat a small fireproof box. Inside were documents I'd hoped never to use. The deed to the house I'd sold, bank statements showing the loan I'd co-signed for Michael's business, and most importantly, the will I'd drafted 3 years ago leaving everything to my only child. But there were other papers too. Papers Michael didn't know about. You see, I hadn't just worked as a nurse. For the last 15 years of my career, I'd worked for Dr. Hamilton Morrison, one of the city's most prominent plastic surgeons. And Dr. Morrison had been very grateful when I'd discreetly handled a situation involving some questionable before and after photos that a disgruntled patient had threatened to release. So grateful, in fact, that he'd insisted on setting up a private investment account for me. "Dottie," he'd said, "you've saved my reputation and my practice. The least I can do is make sure you're taken care of." I'd never touched that money, never even told Michael about it. It had just sat there, growing quietly, earning interest and dividends for over a decade. The statements came to a P.O. box I maintained, and I'd simply let it accumulate, thinking someday I might need it for medical expenses or emergencies. The current balance was $847,000. I smiled for the first time in hours. If Michael thought Patricia's BMW was impressive, he was about to learn what real money could do. But first, I needed to understand exactly where I stood. I pulled out my laptop, a gift from Michael 2 Christmases ago, back when he still pretended to care, and began researching. Patricia's address led me to property records showing her mansion was worth $2.3 million. Her late husband's construction company had been sold for $15 million, and she lived quite comfortably on the proceeds. Michael's architectural firm, Morrison and Associates, he'd named it after Dr. Morrison, not knowing about our connection, was doing well, very well, according to the business filings I could access online. Well enough that a BMW shouldn't have been a strain on his finances. No, this hadn't been about money. This had been about priority, about who mattered and who didn't. I spent the next week planning. Every detail had to be perfect. First, I called Michael. "Mom, how are you? Did you have a good New Year's?" "Oh, it was quiet." "Michael, I've been thinking about something, and I need your advice." "Of course, Mom." "What's up?" "Well, you know I've been struggling a bit financially." I let my voice waver slightly. "I'm thinking of selling some of my jewelry, your father's mother's pieces, to help make ends meet. But I wanted to ask you first if you'd like to keep them in the family." There was a pause. "Oh, Mom. I wish I could help, but like I said, things are really tight right now. Maybe selling them is the best option. I'm sorry." "Perfect. I understand, dear. I just wanted to check." "Actually, Mom, I hate to ask this, but would you be able to watch the kids this weekend? Sarah and I have a charity gala, and you know how important those networking events are for the business." "Of course, Michael. I'll always be there when you need me." After I hung up, I called my lawyer. Next, I visited Patricia's country club. It wasn't hard to get a guest pass. I simply told them I was considering membership and would like to tour the facilities. The young woman at the front desk was eager to help, especially when I mentioned I was recently widowed and looking to make new social connections. "Oh, you'll love it here," she gushed. "We have such a wonderful community of women. Are you familiar with any of our current members?" "Actually, yes. Patricia Hendricks. She's my son's mother-in-law. We've become quite close." The girl's face lit up. "Oh, Mrs. Hendricks. She's lovely. Always so generous with the charity auctions. Did you see the beautiful bracelet she donated last month? It sold for $15,000. "Interesting." Patricia was generous with charity auctions but couldn't spare a kind word for her son-in-law's struggling mother. "She has such exquisite taste," I agreed. "I hope to be half as elegant when I reach her age." "Well, she certainly knows how to live well." "Did you see her new BMW? She was so excited about it. Apparently, her son-in-law surprised her for Christmas. She said it was the most thoughtful gift she'd ever received." My smile felt frozen. How wonderful for her. I spent an hour touring the club, taking note of everything. The dining room where Patricia held court every Tuesday, the spa where she had her weekly massage, the parking lot where her new BMW sat like a gleaming trophy. That evening, I made another call. Morrison and Associates, this is Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer. This is Dorothy Chen. I believe your firm designed some buildings for my late husband's company, Chen Construction. Oh, Mrs. Chen. Of course. How can I help you? Well, I'm working on developing a new mixed-use complex downtown, and I was hoping to discuss bringing Michael back on as the architect. It would be quite a large project. I'm thinking about a $50 million development. There was barely controlled excitement in her voice. That sounds wonderful. Let me put you through to Michael right away. Actually, I'd prefer to set up a meeting for next week. Somewhere quiet where we can discuss the details. Perhaps lunch at the Riverside Club? I'll check his calendar and get back to you today. She called back within an hour. Michael was available Tuesday at noon. Perfect. The same day and time Patricia held court at her country club dining room. Tuesday arrived with unseasonable warmth for January. I dressed carefully in my best suit. Navy blue, classic, expensive looking, even though I'd bought it at a consignment shop. I arrived at the Riverside Club 15 minutes early and was seated at a prominent table with a clear view of the entrance. Michael arrived precisely on time, looking polished and professional in his tailored suit. He seemed genuinely excited as he approached the table. Mrs. Chen, this is such an unexpected pleasure. I had no idea you were interested in development projects. I smiled graciously. Please, call me Dorothy. And yes, I've been considering it for some time. Your work came highly recommended. We ordered lunch, and I let Michael talk about his vision for modern urban development while I appeared to listen intently. He was passionate about his work. I had to give him that. It reminded me of the eager young man who used to call me every Sunday to share his dreams and struggles. This all sounds fascinating, I said when he paused to take a bite of his salmon. I'm quite impressed. Tell me, Michael, what's your policy on family involvement in business decisions? He looked puzzled. I'm sorry? Well, you know how important family support can be in business. I imagine your wife and her family have been quite supportive of your career. Oh, absolutely. Sarah's been amazing, and her mother Patricia has been incredibly generous with introductions and recommendations. She's really helped open doors for us. How wonderful. And your own family? Your mother must be so proud of your success. Something shifted in his expression. Yes, of course. Mom's always been supportive. That's lovely. Family loyalty is so important, don't you think? The people who were there from the beginning, who sacrificed for your success, they deserve to share in the rewards. Michael nodded, though he looked slightly uncomfortable. Absolutely. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila folder. I've brought some preliminary information about the project. Property surveys, financial projections, that sort of thing. He opened the folder eagerly, then froze. Inside were copies of the loan documents he'd signed 7 years ago, the ones I'd co-signed when his business was failing and the banks wouldn't lend to him. Documents showing that I was legally entitled to a 30% stake in his company if he defaulted on his payments to me, payments he'd stopped making 2 years ago. Mom? His voice cracked slightly. What is this? I kept my voice steady, professional. I think there's been a misunderstanding about our business relationship, Michael. You see, according to these documents, you've been in default on your loan obligations for 24 months. That means, legally, I now own a controlling interest in Morrison and Associates. The color drained from his face. But you never said anything. You never asked for payments. I didn't want to burden my struggling son. I thought family helped family without keeping score. Apparently, I was wrong. He stared at the documents, his hands shaking slightly. Mom, I can explain. Explain what? That your mother-in-law deserved a $60,000 car while your actual mother deserved $20? That Patricia's approval was worth more than the woman who sacrificed everything for your education and career? It wasn't like that. The BMW it was a business investment. Patricia's connections are worth more than your mother's love. Yes, I understand that now. Michael looked around the restaurant desperately, as if hoping this was all a bad dream. What do you want, Mom? I leaned forward. What I want is for you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose to treat me as worthless, so I'm simply adjusting our business relationship to reflect that reality. You're taking my company? I'm claiming what was legally mine the moment you stopped honoring our agreement. But I'm not unreasonable, Michael. I'll make you a deal. He waited, looking sick. You have 30 days to buy back your shares. The price is exactly what Patricia's BMW cost, plus interest. $65,000. I don't have that kind of cash available right now. Then I suggest you figure it out. Perhaps Patricia would loan it to you. She seems quite fond of expensive gifts. I stood up and placed two $20 bills on the table. Lunch is on me. I believe that covers both our meals with a generous tip. After all, $40 is practically a fortune in our family. Michael called out after me as I walked away, but I didn't turn back. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Michael called 17 times. Sarah called 4 times. I ignored them all. The next morning, I had a visitor. Patricia Hendricks stood at my apartment door in her designer coat, her new BMW keys clutched in her manicured hand. She looked furious. You need to stop this ridiculous tantrum right now, she announced, pushing past me into my living room. Michael explained your little stunt yesterday. This is beneath even you. I closed the door calmly. I'm sorry, I don't believe we've been formally introduced. You must be Patricia. I'm Dorothy, Michael's mother. I know who you are. And I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to manipulate my daughter's husband with some legal technicality because you're jealous of a Christmas gift. Jealous? Is that what Michael told you? He told me you're upset because you didn't get an expensive present. Well, let me explain something to you, Dorothy. Michael is a successful businessman now. He has obligations, responsibilities. He can't waste money on frivolous gifts for every person with their hand out. I felt that cold anger crystallizing again. Frivolous gifts for every person with their hand out. That's not what I... No, please continue. I'd love to hear more about how the woman who raised Michael, educated him, and funded his business is just another person with her hand out. Patricia's face flushed. You don't understand the pressures he faces. The networking, the social obligations, image matters in his business. And apparently, I don't contribute to the right image. Look, I'm sure you're a nice woman, but you have to understand your place. Sarah and Michael have worked hard to build their social position. They can't be dragged down by his mother? By family drama, by people who don't understand how their world works. I walked to my kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Patricia followed, still talking. I'm prepared to make you a reasonable offer to resolve this situation. I'll give you $10,000 to sign away your claim to Michael's business. I nearly laughed. $10,000? It's more than generous for someone in your position. Someone in my position. I repeated the phrase slowly. Patricia, do you know what I did for a living? Michael mentioned you were a nurse or something. I was a nurse for Dr. Hamilton Morrison. Are you familiar with him? She shrugged. The name sounds familiar. He's one of the city's most successful plastic surgeons. Very discreet, very expensive, very grateful to employees who help him maintain his reputation. Something in my tone made her pause. I continued. Dr. Morrison was so grateful, in fact, that he insisted on setting up an investment account for me. It's done quite well over the years. What are you saying? I pulled out my phone and showed her my most recent investment statement. Patricia's eyes widened as she took in the balance. As you can see, I don't need your $10,000. Or Michael's business for that matter. I have more than enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Then why are you doing this? Because my son needed to learn that some things in life aren't for sale. Apparently, I'm the one who had to teach him that lesson. Patricia stared at the phone screen. If you have all this money, why didn't you help Michael when his business was struggling? I did help him. I co-signed a loan that saved his company. I just never told him about my other resources because I wanted him to succeed on his own merit, not because his mother was wealthy. But you let him think you were poor. I let him think I was ordinary. There's a difference. And his response to what he perceived as my financial struggles told me everything I needed to know about his character. Patricia sank into one of my kitchen chairs. He doesn't know? He's about to find out. Along with the rest of the family. What do you mean? I smiled. I mean that tomorrow morning, the local newspaper will run a feature story about my donation to the new children's hospital wing. $250,000 donated in memory of my late husband by his loving widow, Dorothy Chen. The newspaper? Yes. I thought it was important for people to understand that not all of Michael's family are gold diggers with their hands out. Some of us actually contribute to society. Patricia looked sick. This will humiliate Sarah. And Michael. Will it? I thought image was so important in their business. Surely having a philanthropist for a mother-in-law will enhance Michael's social standing. You're doing this for revenge. I'm doing this for education. Michael needs to learn that family isn't about what you can get from people. It's about what you're willing to give. And right now, he's failing that test. The next morning, the newspaper story ran on the front page of the lifestyle section. The headline read, "Local Nurse's Legacy Gift Honors Late Husband's Memory." The article detailed my nursing career, my late husband's work in construction, and our family's commitment to giving back to the community. It mentioned that I was the mother of local architect Michael Morrison, and that the donation was made possible by careful financial planning and the generous investment advice of a grateful former employer. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. The first call was from Michael. I let it go to voicemail. The second was from Sarah. Also voicemail. The third was from Patricia. I answered. "Dorothy, we need to talk." "Good morning, Patricia. Did you see the newspaper?" Everyone saw the newspaper. My phone has been ringing all morning. People are asking why Michael's wealthy mother wasn't at the charity gala last weekend. Well, I wasn't invited. That's not the point. The point is that you've made us all look like fools. Have I? I've simply contributed to a worthy cause and given credit where it was due. If that makes anyone look foolish, perhaps they should examine their own behavior. What do you want, Dorothy? What will it take to make this go away? Nothing can make this go away, Patricia. The truth has a way of spreading. The truth? The truth that your son-in-law's mother has been financially secure all along and could have bought 10 BMWs without blinking. The truth that despite having the means to help, she never asked for anything except basic respect and love from her son. The truth that she gave him everything, her savings, her support, her unconditional love, and received $20 and condescension in return. There was a long pause. What happens now? Now Michael learns what it means to value family properly. He has 25 days left to buy back his company. And if he can't? Then he'll learn what it feels like to have his security depend on someone else's generosity. The confrontation I'd been expecting came that evening. Michael and Sarah arrived together, both looking haggard and angry. "Mom, we need to talk," Michael said the moment I opened the door. "Of course. Come in." They sat stiffly on my couch, and I noticed Sarah's designer handbag clutched tightly in her lap like armor. "Why didn't you tell me about the money?" Michael asked without preamble. Would it have mattered? Of course it would have mattered. How? Would you have loved me more? Respected me more? Or would you have just seen me as another source of funding for your lifestyle? Sarah spoke for the first time. That's not fair. We've never asked you for money. No, you just wrote me off as an obligation, someone to be managed with minimal effort and maximum condescension. That's not true, Michael protested. Isn't it? When did you last call me just to see how I was doing? When did you last visit without needing something? When did you last treat me like someone whose thoughts and feelings mattered? Michael looked down at his hands. I've been busy. Too busy for your mother. But not too busy to spend hours selecting the perfect BMW for Patricia. That was different. That was business. No, Michael. That was choice. You chose to prioritize Patricia's happiness over mine. You chose to invest $60,000 in her approval while giving me $20 and a pat on the head. Sarah finally exploded. You're destroying our lives over Christmas presents? That's insane. I turned to her calmly. Sarah, in the 7 years you've been married to my son, how many times have you invited me to dinner? How many times have you included me in family decisions? How many times have you treated me as anything other than an inconvenience? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I'll answer for you. 0. But Patricia gets the royal treatment because she has money and connections. Well, congratulations. You've taught my son to value wealth over love. I hope you're proud of the man you've helped him become. Michael stood up abruptly. Fine. You want respect? You want acknowledgement? Here it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I took you for granted. I'm sorry about the $20. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate everything you've done for me. There. Are you happy now? No, Michael. I'm not happy. Because you're not sorry. You're panicked. You're afraid of losing your business, afraid of looking like a fool in front of your social circle, afraid of losing Patricia's connections. But you're not actually sorry for breaking your mother's heart. That's not true. Then prove it. You have 25 days to buy back your company. But the price just went up. What do you mean? The price is now $100,000, plus a written apology that acknowledges exactly how you've treated me and why it was wrong, plus a commitment to weekly family dinners where I'm treated as an honored guest, not a burden. Plus, Sarah's public acknowledgement that she's been dismissive and cruel to me. Sarah gasped. I won't do that. Then you'll lose the business. Michael stared at me. You've changed, Mom. You're not the person I remember. No, Michael. I'm exactly the same person. I'm the woman who loved you unconditionally, sacrificed everything for your success, and asked for nothing but basic human decency in return. The only difference is that now I have the power to demand what I should have been given freely. They left without another word. The next 2 weeks were interesting. Word spread quickly through Michael's social and professional circles about his wealthy mother and his tenuous hold on his own business. I received 3 lunch invitations from women at Patricia's country club, 2 calls from financial advisors wanting to manage my investments, and 1 marriage proposal from a widower who'd read about my charitable donation. I declined them all politely. Michael called twice more, each time sounding more desperate. Sarah's mother apparently wasn't willing to loan them the money. She claimed all her assets were tied up in trusts and investments. Other potential lenders were reluctant to get involved in what was clearly a family dispute. On day 20, Patricia visited me again. I'll give you $50,000 toward the buyback, she announced. That's my final offer. Why would you do that? Because this situation is reflecting badly on all of us. People are talking. What are they saying? She shifted uncomfortably. They're saying that Michael is ungrateful, that Sarah is manipulative, that I'm a social climber who corrupted their family values. Are they wrong? You're being vindictive. I'm being truthful. But I appreciate the offer. However, my terms stand. The apology requirement is ridiculous. Is it? Don't you think I deserve acknowledgement for what I've endured? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. What if I apologize too? For what? For encouraging them to see you as less important. For suggesting that some family members matter more than others. I studied her face. Are you actually sorry, or are you just trying to fix a problem? I don't know anymore. This whole situation has made me think about my own children, about whether they see me the way Michael learned to see you. And what conclusion did you reach? That maybe money and connections aren't the only things that make someone valuable. It wasn't much, but it was something. On day 25, Michael called. Mom? I have the money. All of it? Yes. Patricia loaned us part of it, and we took out a second mortgage on the house. I see. And the other requirements? I'll write the apology. Sarah will write one too, and we'd like to start the family dinners this Sunday, if that works for you. What changed your mind? There was a long pause. I talked to Dr. Morrison yesterday. He told me some things about you that I didn't know, about how you protected his practice, how you could have leveraged that situation for personal gain but chose not to, how you've quietly helped other people over the years without anyone knowing. He shouldn't have told you that. Maybe not. But it made me realize that I don't really know who you are anymore. Maybe I never did. And that's my fault, not yours. I felt something tight in my chest begin to loosen. Michael? Yes? I don't want to take your business away. I never did. I just wanted my son back. He was crying. I could hear it in his voice. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really, truly sorry. Not because I'm scared, but because I love you, and I've been a terrible son. You haven't been terrible. You've been thoughtless. There's a difference. Can you forgive me? I've already forgiven you. The question is whether you can forgive yourself and do better going forward. We met that afternoon to complete the paperwork. Michael handed me a check for $100,000, which I immediately signed over to the Children's Hospital. Sarah gave me a handwritten letter that was awkward but genuine in its acknowledgement of her behavior. Michael's apology was longer and more detailed, and I could tell he'd really thought about what he'd done wrong. But the real proof came at our first family dinner that Sunday. Michael arrived early to help me cook. Sarah brought flowers and asked about my nursing career. Real questions that showed genuine interest. The children, who barely knew me because visits had been so infrequent, seemed amazed to discover that their grandmother had traveled to 3 continents, spoke 2 languages, and once helped deliver a baby in a taxi during a snowstorm. Grandma Dorothy, my granddaughter asked, why didn't you ever tell us you were rich? I looked at Michael, who was listening intently to the answer. Because money isn't what makes someone rich, sweetheart. Love is what makes someone rich. And I've always been rich in love. I just forgot that for a while. Patricia even joined us for dessert, arriving with an expensive bottle of wine and a sincere apology for her role in the family's dysfunction. I want you to know, she told me quietly while the others were clearing dishes, that I returned the BMW. Why? Because every time I looked at it, I thought about what it represented. I bought myself a nice used car instead and donated the difference to your hospital fund. 6 months later, our family dinners had become a treasured weekly tradition. Michael had grown his business by 30%, partly because his clients were impressed by his family's philanthropic involvement in the community. Sarah had started volunteering at the Children's Hospital and discovered a passion for helping others that she'd never known she possessed. And me? I was rich in all the ways that mattered. I never told them about the rest of Dr. Morrison's investment account. Some secrets are worth keeping, and some lessons only need to be taught once. Besides, I was saving that money for my grandchildren's education. After all, family takes care of family, and now my son finally understood what that really meant.